Welcome to the Syncretism Society Virtual Academy. We'll be going to the 7th stage of the alchemical process, which is ruled by Libra. Let's get right into it. So the 7th stage of the alchemical process is known as sublimation. Sublimation in the physical mundane level, or on the alchemical laboratory level, or the workshop of life, it is turning a solid form into a gas without going through the state of liquid. So as we can see on the right, we have the solid ice cube. Sublimation is when this ice cube is, due to an effect, transformed directly into gas without going through the state of liquid. So if we know that the solid cube represents the physical body and the gas, the ether, the spirit, we know that the sublimation process on a spiritual level has to do with transforming and purifying the body and transmuting it into the spirit, or the premium materia. So we see here on the lower diagram, the ice sublimates to steam. But if water can also evaporate into steam, or ice can melt into water, so that is melting, or water can solidify into ice, or steam can desublimate into ice. So when steam directly becomes ice, that is the reverse sublimation process. And here on the bottom is a picture I found that kind of shows what it would look like for ice to directly become gas. So the metaphysical meaning of this is to transmute the matter of our body into spirit, or premium materia. The purification and making more subtle of all the terrestrial aspects of our being. So as alchemists, we are transmuting, sublimating our lower extinctual animal nature into the higher celestial spiritual nature. And this process is literally creating our physical body and transmuting it into spirit. So we're actually becoming more subtle. We sublimate our instincts, our reflexes, and the programs that we've been given through our environment, all the mechanical, and we observe them through consciousness and self-reflection. And by doing this, we overcome them with willpower. And on the journey in Virgo, we went through distillation, which is when we started creating the vapor. But in sublimation, we actually the process becomes more enveloped. The gases begin to rise into the brain, where metaphysical clouds are created. When we start refraining from the desires of the lower animal nature and the will of the selfish nature, not by abstaining from them and becoming celibate, or refuging into a cave, running away into the wilderness, although that would be great for a period of time of healing, we're not talking about, eliminating our existence in the material realm. We're talking about spiritualizing our actions, thoughts, and intentions by refraining from selfish desires and the impulse to emit the sexual energy through the animal orgasm. And when we refrain from this, the desire gets transmuted into light. The physical solidified crude matter is then transformed into the gaseous ether, or spirit. Transmuted desire equals light and fire. When we withdraw without spilling the energy, or the matter is transformed into the gas, and this gas rises up the middle canal of the spinal column. This energy that accumulates is known as phosphorus. Phosphorus Lucifer. Elemental phosphorus was first isolated as white phosphorus in 1669. White phosphorus emits a faint glow when exposed to oxygen, hence the name taken from Greek mythology, meaning light bearer. Referring to the morning star of the planet Venus, the term phosphorescence, meaning glow, after illumination, derives from its property of phosphorus, although the word has since been used for different physical processes that produces a glow. The glow of phosphorus is caused by oxidation of the white but not red phosphorus, a process now called chemiluminescence. Together with nitrogen, arsenic, antimony, and bismuth, phosphorus is classified as pentatogen. What this means is the energy that accumulates in the bottom of the spine. We know that large amounts of phosphorus is found in the brain and the sexual fluids. So when we retain the sexual fluids and they begin to evaporate into this gas rises to the brain. And we know that the phosphorus in the brain allows us to become self-conscious, to become self-cognizant. That phosphorus is what allows us to become self-conscious and reflective. The energy we transmute distills in vapors. The vapors reach the brain and form the metaphysical clouds and lightning. That's why in the Bible, God always says that I bring the thunder and lightning, and there was crackling heard in heaven, and earthquakes. The earthquakes are the shaking of our belief systems when we understand the truth of who we are. Then in the higher levels of the brain, in the same way in the firmament, there's clouds, and the clouds produce thunder and lightning and power from the evaporation of the water. In the same way that the sexual energy that's evaporated into our spine, into our upper sky, which is the brain, creates these clouds, this vaporous electricity, enlightenment. The light is phosphorus. And people with low sexual energy have low levels of phosphorus in the brain. Phosphorus gives us the self-reflective consciousness, the light, the lantern. The liberated sexual energy stays in and creates something new within us. And this purifies the body and perfects the temple. When this energy starts evaporating and up into the brain and pushing up the seed into the third ventricle, the new blood is driven into the body and spiritualized. The matter in each atom becomes more subtle. We're activating the light photons in our body rather than the tomb of matter that encases us. We're transforming it into light. And then our surroundings and our realm becomes more lucid and more subtle. And then collectively, we also participate and help others purify through purifying our defects and walking the path. We're also giving rise to others who are eliminating defects and walking on the path and liberating others. Just by doing it ourselves, we are a part of the whole. When we eliminate and balance characteristics within ourselves, we give the collective the same strive and idea to do it. The element phosphorus was first isolated from human urine and bone ash. As we know, the 12 cell salts are found in the human body when it's burned to ashes. The 12 cell salts are the final remaining minerals. And Jesus in the Bible says, don't you know that you are a pillar of salt, that we are made of salt and we're the salt of the earth. So this energy is found in our body. This phosphate, this light, is condensed light. And we are the mineral. We are the walking salt temples. So this part of the alchemical process is ruled by Libra. This is where we find balance of the sun and moon aspects within us. The sun active principle and the moon receptive. On this part of the path, we begin to become more assertive, to be more directed with our sun aspect. And then the moon, we become receptive to our surroundings, our environments, and synchronicities. We're receptive to knowledge, but we keep our sun, our discrimination of half-truths. We keep our eye open. So we keep these imbalanced. Through the sublimation, the animal nature, when we sublimate this animal nature, we balance the psyche. The left and right brain become balanced. Then we can use both in conjunction. And as life throws us trials and we become more patient, Libra's qualities help us to learn the difference between good and evil, to not just live in a false reality where we have moral relativity. So we find the truth. As you can see in the symbolism, the heart is weighed against the scale. The heart is weighed against the feather, and our hearts must become light as feathers. And we can lighten our heart through simple living, because Libra rules the intellect, and through the intellect, we are constantly trying to strive for more and more information, more and more knowledge, more and more theories, and it needs to be in balance with simple living and heartfelt feeling. So it's good to live a life full of feeling in balance with our intellect of chasing knowledge, and we should learn knowledge for self-realization and to help others. And we should practice simple living rather than trying to complicate our everyday processes, because we overload ourselves with theories and polarities and prejudices against others, and we overcomplicate our living situation. And we take to the Tao Te Ching of Lao Tzu and learn to simply live from moment to moment and follow the Tao which resides in the heart. And by trying to simplify our actions and sacrifice the fruits of our labor and to do selfless service for the Creator, we slowly begin to awaken the heart. And we become to finally embody the process of sublimation. By putting our foot on the serpent, we become human. Now let's take a look into The Light of Egypt by Thomas H. Burgoyne and see his perspective of Libra. We must now turn our attention to the purely esoteric aspect of the four triplicities and view them from the Hermetic and occult standpoint. The four ancient elements, azoth, salt, sulfur, and mercury, have been symbolized from time immemorial as the man, the bull, the lion, and the eagle. Astrologically, these are Aquarius, the water bearer, symbol of man; Taurus, the sign of the bull; Leo, represented by the lion; and lastly, Scorpio, symbolized by the eagle. In this change of symbols, the thoughtful student will find much that it is well worthy of his care, full consideration, for where hereby hangs a tale, an esoteric planisphere of the 12 signs. Adam Kadmon, the primordial man, pure and in perfect accord with the Father, occupied that point of the planisphere now designated by the sign of Libra, which signifies the point of equilibrium in the sphere. The esoteric point is where day and night, winter and summer, light and darkness, good and evil are one. Adam Kadmon represents the ideal man, and the very fact that we can form an ideal conception is the absolute proof that we possess the possibilities of attaining onto the ideal and realizing our conception, not perhaps upon this plane, but certainly when we are translated to the higher planes. The modern English name for this point of the sphere, the balance, which means justice, is a fitting one, as justice is that which discriminates upon the external plane between good and evil and metes out rewards and punishments. Life, light, and truth are the same and consist of spiritual reflection. They are spiritual rays, and when these rays become refracted by passing through the prism of matter, truth becomes illusion, life becomes limited by assuming the appearance of death, and light becomes obscured. This thought is clearly expressed by S.S. Grimp in her book Esoteric Lessons under the subject First Lessons in Reality. The spiritually beautiful and eternally true have no existence in this world where all is change, strife, discord, and death. Therefore, we see that the divine spiritual ray of good, when it becomes refracted, presents all forms and colors of evil. The former only is real. So here we're talking about the transcendental plane in opposed to the mundane realm of the shadow realm, or the dark world, which is where we are. And we know that the astrological sign of Libra is the lower arc of the sine wave, the dark part, or physical realm. Thomas H. Burgoyne goes on to say that Kabbalistically, the sign Libra signifies the reins and loins of the grand celestial man, and therefore represents the central conservatory or storehouse of the reproductive fluids. It is also the magnetic vortex of procreative strength. This constellation also represents, in its most interior aspect, the equinoctial point of the arc in the ascending and descending cycle of the life atom. Therefore, this sign contains the unification of the cosmic forces as the grand central point of equilibrium of the sphere. Libra upon the esoteric planisphere is occupied by Dan, the patriarch, and his blessing thus refers to his celestial nature. Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Libra represents the interior equilibrium of nature's forces and contains the mystery of the divine atonement of the ancient initiations. Upon the universal chart, this sign becomes Enoch, the perfect man. Its mystical gem is the diamond. As a magnetic talisman, this stone acts as a repulsive force and combines with the magnetic sphere of those born under its influence, to repel the emanations from foreign bodies, either of persons or things. Libra is the second emanation of the airy triplicity and is the constellation of Venus. Now, interesting enough, where we see that Venus represents Lucifer and Venus is in Libra. Could it be perhaps that Lucifer's energy or archetype resides in Libra, the forces of good and evil, and our ability to discriminate between them? And as we can see Kabbalistically and astrotheologically and in the Bible, Libra is represented by different characters such as Enoch, the sun in Libra, or Dan. Jesus says, I've come to separate the sheep and the goats. As we know, Libra separates the sheep and the goats, Aries in the high point, 0 degrees right ascension, and Capricorn being in the dark part of the arc, close to the winter months. As you can see in the chart here, we have Libra, and then on the right we have Capricorn, and then on the left we have Aries. Jesus brings, I've come to bring judgment with the sword. I've come to separate the sheep and the goats. And as you can see, these are the 7 on the left, the chart of Thomas H. Burgoyne's In Light of Egypt, showing the 7 forces used by the intelligent hierarchies of the light: justice, mercy, splendor, victory, power, love, foundation. Now, if it wasn't for Libra, these forces would not be in equilibrium. Because of Libra or Cassiel, or the patience of the universal intelligence, these forces are all able to be balanced. We spoke that Gemini is the reason why all of these are able to collaborate with each other. And it's because of the intelligences of Libra that these are all balanced within each other, and we get to live this existence. During the sublimation process of alchemy, the need to depolarize is strongly stressed. Here on the right, we have a diagram of the tree of life. Now, from the Western mystery perspective, the chakras are a bit different. The chakras correspond to different points of the body in the same shape of the tree of life. So on the top, we have Kether, Chokmah, Binah, being the crown chakra, the pineal gland, and the pituitary. We have the throat chakra being Da'ath, or the hidden sphere. Then we have the right shoulder and left shoulder being Gebda and Chesed, or justice and mercy. And then we have, as we can see, the central channel coming up and down. So when we're polarized, we're always to the right or to the left too much. We're either too severe or too merciful. Either we're being too judgmental or not being discriminative enough. So on the path of the magician or the yogi, it is to balance these polarities and move up the central channel, starting from Malkuth, Yesod, Tiphareth, and Kether, by utilizing the forces of Gebda and Chesed, and splendor and victory, Nestach and Hod. So through the practices you learn in this academy, as well as the practices we learned in the previous lectures on this channel, we balance inside of the central channel. So this opens up the Sushumna, which is the channel that blocks the rising of the Kundalini. In the distillation process of Virgo, we opened up the Sushumna. The distillation opens up the central channel. This purifies the nervous system and begins to spiritualize the atoms of matter into more subtle atoms, so that when we reach the higher planes of existence after death, we can go into the realm, the astral plane, and we ascend the planets and live out the different regions of the universe. And we can experience them now if we meditate, if we were to balance our channels through simple living by checking our animal impulses and subliminating them, then this middle pillar would become where we reside. If we practice the practice of Kriya Yoga from the Yogananda school, we can see that if we reside in the center column of the spine, then we bring balance to the three centers of the brain, the heart, and the physical instincts. So the mind, the emotions, and the physical instincts, by simply residing in the center of our spine, rather than letting our thoughts be on something external, or a thought, or an emotion, or an aggravation. Simply place your attention in the center of the spine. Always keep the tongue at the roof of the mouth, and always have a sweet stare in your eye, a very simple glance. This will help you be established in the middle pillar. We can also do mantra vocalization starting at the head, above the head, A, and then the throat, E. Number 6, or the heart, O. And number 9, U. Just like an instrument, the human body can be tuned. We were made to play the music that the Creator makes. The music's already there in the heavens. Man was created to play that music. I say that God created man to play his music. Man has hands, or manos, for us to channel and become mediums of the higher dimensions. Not mediums in the sense of channeling spirits to talk, but I mean that we are antennas for the higher planes of existence to manifest on earth through us, through our actions, through our thoughts and intentions. So some definite ways to become depolarized and to walk barefoot. This will ground your energy. Body's just like a battery, positive, negative, and it needs an outlet. So if we're always wearing rubber sole shoes, then we are not letting the energy complete its circuit. Same with the tongue at the roof of the mouth. The tongue should always rest there because that completes the circuit. And we said we could practice mantra vocalizations. We can even vibrate God names. Starting at the top of the head, eh, hey, yay, the throat chakra, yod, hey, vod, hey, Elohim, the solar plexus, yod, hey, vod, Elohim, Eloah, vod, da'ath, the groin or genital chakra, Sadai El Chai. Then the feet, Adonai I Hadaretz. And you could also do with the Eastern chakra mantras as well. These are both beautiful practices to depolarize. You can also stay centered in the witness and established in the self. We talked about in the previous lecture how we can reside and be established in the essence by abiding on the part of you that you feel is not physical, but is the screen or the fog screen of existence that is attached to the breath, which attaches you to the body. This part of you is the self. So you don't have to be identified with the physical body. As we were so conditioned to believe, we start to change our paradigm and perception completely to a state of knowing that we're not the body. And then day by day with this knowledge, this intuition, our inner guide allows us to balance our actions on the inner scale of justice so that we're never doing karmic actions that are going to cause us, to harm ourselves or others. We can start to plan our actions for the better. So what exactly is polarity? And we know polarity is like salt and pepper, hot and cold, day and night, But when we're talking about this polarity, we're talking about the state of having two opposites or contradictory tendencies, opinions, or aspects. So polarity in our psyche. So to be attached to sense gratification or to be completely repulsed by sense gratification. To believe only my religion or to not believe in any religion. To be so merciful and passive that you let robbers completely just rob you and hurt your family, or to be way too strict and judgmental that you cause harm to someone for something that perhaps they were stealing just to eat food, and then you lock them up. These are things that we have to meditate on ourselves and ask our inner being to show us light on where are we becoming too frigid or rigid? Where are we lost our balance, our equanimity? It's always good to ask ourselves, what would the Christos do? What would Krishna do? What would the Great Spirit do in this situation? And listen and be receptive for answers. We can become balanced between being severe and merciful. We need to learn how to be harsh on ourselves at times, but not too harsh to the point that we're pestering ourselves and hurting ourselves and putting subconscious fears in ourselves. Sometimes we have to show mercy to ourselves and others and forgiveness. That's why Jesus is the perfect archetype of balance of mercy and justice. In his actions, he was always merciful to those who others were overly justice of. Like when they were going to stone the girl for adultery, Jesus stepped in and said, whoever wants to cast the first stone must have not committed a sin. Here he is applying the balance of Libra, mercy and justice. Sometimes we explode with justice and it becomes wrath, just like the ones that were going to throw the stone. So these stories reflect our inner life, and we have to be very careful how we're acting to others and ourselves. We must be balanced between these polarities. The symbols of mercy and justice would date back to ancient Egypt and, well, their time memorial symbols, eternal truths. So we have the flail, the shepherd's crook of the pharaoh. And the flail is an agricultural tool used for threshing, the process of separating grains from their husk. It is usually made from 2 or more large sticks attached by a short chain. One stick is held and swung, causing the other to strike a pile of grain, loosening the husk, and to separate the wheat from the chaff. The crook is used for shepherding. We at times must shepherd our thoughts and let our inner guide nudge us on the path. And other times we need the flail of justice and to be harsh on ourselves. In fact, we need to balance these two energies on a day-to-day basis. Once we do this, we open up the enteral channel and the energy rises to the heart chakra, then into the third ventricle of the brain, igniting the pineal gland. Where it rests, the Christ descends and rests in the heart or earth to rule the kingdom of earth or heart, because heart is an anagram for earth. Our inner animal, our inner Aries, we must shepherd our thoughts with the shepherd's crook. And our lower animal, like the goat and the bull, we must use the flail. We must become harsh on ourselves to be like, all right, get a grip, take care of this. This is your responsibility. And sometimes we need to just shepherd and kind of nudge ourselves. Okay, hey man, get on the path. So a balance of these two archetypes. Now we can awaken the bird brain. As you can see on the top of the pharaoh, you have the snake and the bird. The eagle rules over the serpent. In nature, the eagle swoops and dominates over the wretched serpent, the serpent being their animal nature, the instinctual forces. Man dominates his animal nature, symbol of the bird and the wings, angels, to be able to fly high into the higher realms, astral projection, to overcome the chains of matter, to break free from the prison or chains of material existence. The balanced man walks between the two pillars of mercy and justice and pops open his pineal gland. There's a lecture that Santos Bonacci did a presentation, what is on a PowerPoint projector, and he was talking about how this person lives the balanced life and the bird brain, and these two aspects are in the head. It's a very great presentation. It's look up Mr. Astrotheology, Santos Bonacci, Best of Santos Bonacci. It'll be the first video that pops up in that series. He explains this part very well. about the balanced man who walks the middle path and ends up popping open the pineal gland and overcoming the lower nature. Very, very well said. We'll go to the wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita. He whose mind is not shaken by adversity, who does not hanker after pleasure, and who is free from attachment, fear, and anger, is called a sage of steady wisdom. So Krishna is saying to become a sage, we can't be shaken by adversity. We can't hanker after pleasure. At the same time, we have to be free from attachment. We can't be attached to our spiritual beliefs that, oh, we'll never drink alcohol, or, oh, we'll never touch coffee, never smoke weed, never have sex. At the same time, we shouldn't hanker after these things. We should be free from attachment, fear, and anger, even to those who have different opinions than us. Let us relieve our anger. He does not rejoice in pleasure, nor is he averse to any pain. In this part of the alchemical process of sublimation, you may begin to even see pleasure as painful and pain as pleasure, meaning to suffer correctly. You might begin to see the pain and struggles as actually positive, helping you become stronger, and pleasure as like a drug or a force that makes you passive and it becomes painful. These are very interesting things to notice on the path, and I recommend you taking notes in your journal every day on different perspectives that this alchemical process will have on your psyche. Bhagavad Gita 247, you have the right to work, but never to the fruit of work. You should never engage in action for the sake of reward, nor should you long for inaction. What this is basically saying is that when you maintain the witness, you are no longer the body. The body moves upon its own. Why worry about what it's doing? You're doing the will of the entire machine. If you are, delivering groceries or giving people rides for money, or you are working as a cook, you are doing the work of the entire universe. It's not literally that our ego comes up with a story saying like, oh, I have a job, I have to get money, support my family, I want to save up for this vacation. But really, we're just doing the daily doings of the sun. We're just doing the sine wave. Let it be, let it flow. The reward will come on its own. The law of exchange is always in action. The law of exchange is you get what you put in. So essentially, if you just do your work without hope for results, the results will happen automatically, and there will be no anxiety or tension, and the work will be done perfectly. Here we have a quote on the right. O Dhanajaya, rid yourself of all fruitive activities by devotional service and surrender fully to the consciousness. Those who want to enjoy the fruits of their work are misers. Misers, and look at the word miser and miserable. So we make ourselves miserable by expecting something for our work, by saying, I'm going to do this to get this. You know you're going to get something. Why think? Why hope? Just act. In the Western mystery lesson, we taught about to know, to dare, to act, and to be silent. This is referring to this high state of consciousness that allows the flow of the universe to work through you. Just like Walter Russell says, the mind of God, there's only one mind, and that mind, and we are miniature minds of that one mind. And we can let the universal mind flow through us if we take on the perspective of the higher mind. And the higher mind is not worried about bills or thrills or vacation or savings or to look a certain way or to be perceived by others a certain way. It is simply doing the work of the higher I am. The Christos says, therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. It is the 34th and final verse of the 6th chapter of the Gospel of Matthew on the Sermon of the Mount. So he's also explaining what Krishna was explaining, to sacrifice the fruits of the labors for tomorrow and to abide in the self and to act without expectation. And by doing this process, we end up making our heart as light as a feather, because from ancient Egypt, as the story goes, we are judged on the scales of Libra after death. After we exit the tomb of this living dead realm that we're in order to get to the realm of life, we pass through the scales of Libra, where our heart is weighed against a feather. which means as our heart tainted with evil, dark desires that made it too heavy to pass through purgatory or the purgatory astral plane into the higher realms of Jacob's ladder. So we have to practice now and put it into practice now to make our hearts light. What is troubling you? What is making your heart dense and heavy of desire? This is our purpose, to bring light and calm and peace to it. By living a balanced life and doing charitable acts, as well as being selfless, doing selfless service to the Creator, we lighten our hearts. Because as the Tao Te Ching says, desires weary the heart, thoughts weaken the mind. So we must balance and purify these two channels to live in peace. And peace is the esoteric meaning of Solomon. King Solomon is the king of the temple of Solomon, the temple of the soul and moon. And in Libra, the sublimation, we balance our inner sun and moon. And I hope that this lecture has helped inspire you to balance your inner polarities. Please let me know if there's any questions that I can help you with on your journey. This process is where the distillation process has now become its next stage, where the vapors envelop the aura and the spirit is now ascending into the brain, nourishing it. So now we'll have better ideas, more creative forces, more brain cells, more phosphorus, more light, so that we can become the light bearers. And I hope you guys have a wonderful night.